Have you ever stopped to wonder how many conversations you have with yourself in a single day? Thousands of thoughts racing through your mind, silent whispers you may never speak aloud, yet they shape the way you feel, the choices you make, and the life you experience. Most of us move through our days unaware that this quiet dialogue is either building us up or slowly tearing us down. Imagine for a moment if every word you thought carried the weight of a seed, some seeds flowering into strength, peace, and possibility, while others grew into doubt, fear, and limitation. Which garden would you find yourself standing in right now? What Louise Hay discovered, and what she devoted her life to teaching, is that we are not at the mercy of these inner conversations. We can choose them, we can direct them. We can shape them with the power of affirmations, simple intentional statements that, when repeated with sincerity, begin to reprogram the mind and transform the life we live. It may sound almost too simple, too easy, and yet that is where the beauty lies. The most profound changes do not always come from grand gestures. Often they come from the quiet consistency of the words we choose to plant in the soil of our subconscious. Think of it this way: every time you affirm something positive, you are sending out a vibration, a signal that resonates not only within you but outward into the world. You are in essence declaring to yourself and to life itself, "This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is the reality I choose." And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the world begins to mirror that back to you. This is not fantasy, it is the natural consequence of aligning your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions with a higher truth. And so tonight I invite you to set aside skepticism and lean into curiosity. What if the simple act of choosing your words differently could change the way you feel about yourself, your relationships, your health, even your future? What if affirmations were not just nice phrases on a page, but tools for rewiring your mind, unlocking your resilience, and awakening your power? What if the dialogue you have been carrying, often filled with doubt and criticism, could be rewritten into a script that celebrates your worth, your strength, your possibility? The truth is, it can. And it begins the moment you decide to listen to the voice inside you and teach it a new language, the language of love, of worthiness, of hope. That is the essence of pure and powerful positive affirmations. Imagine for a moment that every thought you think, every phrase you whisper to yourself in silence, is not just an idle passing of the mind, but a force, a vibration, a living seed. Louise Hay believed deeply that the inner dialogue we carry becomes the architecture of our outer lives. It is not simply about thinking positively for the sake of optimism, it is about recognizing that language shapes perception, and perception creates reality. If you tell yourself, "I am not enough," the world around you will echo that sentiment back, reinforcing limitation. But if you choose to affirm, "I am worthy, I am capable, I am deserving of love and success," you begin to reorganize your internal world in a way that calls forward new possibilities. We often underestimate the power of what goes on in the quiet spaces of our mind. The subconscious does not filter or argue, it accepts what it is told repeatedly. It is like a soil that cannot resist what is planted in it. Place weeds there, and weeds will grow. Place roses there, and roses will bloom. This is why affirmations are not a superficial trick, but a profound psychological tool. They are the deliberate planting of roses in the garden of the mind. Over time, with nurturing, those roses spread and dominate the landscape, pushing out the weeds of fear, shame, and doubt. Psychologists speak often about cognitive conditioning, the idea that repeated thought patterns form neural pathways, and the more those pathways are used, the stronger they become. Louise Hay, without relying on heavy scientific terminology, understood this intuitively. She knew that telling yourself, "I am safe," even in moments when fear threatens to overwhelm you, begins to rewire not just your mind but your body. Your heartbeat slows, your breath steadies, your nervous system responds to the new command. What was once a habit of anxiety transforms slowly but surely into a habit of calm. This is not magic, it is discipline. It is conscious direction of the mind, which then transforms the body and ultimately the lived experience. And yet many people resist this practice because it feels unnatural at first. Saying "I love myself" may trigger disbelief, even discomfort. The ego and old conditioning rise up in protest, reminding you of every flaw and every past failure. But here is the truth: the resistance you feel is not proof that the affirmation is false. It is simply the echo of the old story that has been told for too long. The mind, like a stubborn child, does not like change. But just as children learn through consistent, loving repetition, so too does the mind soften and eventually accept new truths. Think of the affirmations as tuning forks. Strike one, and it sends out a vibration. Strike it again, and the vibration grows stronger. With each repetition, the resonance becomes clearer, filling more of your mental space until it begins to drown out the dissonant noise of self-doubt. Over time, the internal music changes, and with it, the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you engage with the world. You are no longer a victim of unconscious self-sabotage. You become a conscious creator of your reality. This is why Louise Hay emphasized compassion in the process. She knew that harshness only reinforces old wounds. If you criticize yourself for not believing enough, you return to the cycle of self-judgment. But if you approach affirmations with gentleness, acknowledging that growth takes time and patience, you allow the seeds to take root naturally. The garden does not bloom overnight, but every day you water it, even if you do not yet see the flowers, you are nourishing something beautiful. And what happens when this practice becomes part of your daily rhythm? Slowly the mirror reflects back a different image. Challenges no longer feel like insurmountable walls, they become stepping stones, because you have already affirmed your ability to rise above them. Relationships shift because the love you affirm within yourself radiates outward, attracting healthier connections. Opportunities emerge because confidence has replaced hesitation. Life itself begins to respond differently because your inner voice is now aligned with your deepest truth rather than your deepest fear. At its essence, this is the gift of affirmations, the realization that the dialogue you carry inside is the blueprint of the life you build outside. Every sentence you say to yourself is either a construction tool or a wrecking ball, and the choice of which one you use lies in your hands. So I ask you to reflect: what have you been saying to yourself today? What story have you been repeating? Is it a story that keeps you small, or is it a story that lifts you higher? The next time that quiet voice speaks, pause and choose to plant roses instead of weeds. Choose to affirm your worth, your strength, your possibility. Because when you master the inner dialogue, you do not just change your thoughts, you change your life. If the first step is to recognize that our inner dialogue shapes our outer reality, then the second step is to commit ourselves to the practice of changing that dialogue. Transformation does not occur by wishing or by waiting, it happens when we choose with awareness to repeat new words until they become part of the very fabric of our being. Louise Hay understood that affirmations are not just single sentences uttered once, they are conscious declarations that through repetition begin to dismantle the old architecture of fear and replace it with the solid foundation of empowerment. Consider for a moment how habits are formed. If you practice a skill every day, say learning to play an instrument, your fingers slowly gain memory, and soon what once felt awkward becomes natural. The same principle applies to the mind. At first, saying "I am worthy of love" may feel clumsy or even unbelievable, but with repetition that affirmation moves from the surface of your awareness into the depths of your subconscious, and once it lives there, it no longer feels foreign. It becomes your truth, your instinctive response, your new default setting. This is why consistency is so powerful. The mind is trained through repetition, and it cannot resist what it hears over and over again. For years, perhaps decades, many of us have repeated affirmations of a negative sort without realizing it. I can't, I don't deserve this, I will fail, life is unfair. We rehearse these lines like actors who never tire of the same painful script, and unsurprisingly, the stage of our lives reflects the words we feed it. Affirmations are the way to rewrite that script deliberately. They are rehearsals for a new performance, one where you are not the victim of circumstance, but the author of your own destiny. But let us be clear, affirmations are not a denial of reality. They are not about ignoring pain, pretending challenges do not exist, or covering wounds with superficial words. Instead, they are about acknowledging that even within difficulty, you have the power to choose how you speak to yourself. When you are ill, affirming "I am healing" does not deny the illness. It gives your body a command, a focus, a direction toward restoration. When you face setbacks, affirming "I am capable of overcoming obstacles" does not erase the challenge, but it fuels you with resilience rather than despair. In this way, affirmations are not about escape, they are about empowerment. The beauty of conscious repetition is that it builds strength where there was once weakness. Imagine a person who has always felt unworthy of love. The first time they affirm "I am lovable," their mind may laugh in disbelief, but with every repetition that disbelief softens. Slowly the affirmation becomes less of a statement and more of a reminder. Over time it transforms into a conviction, and eventually it becomes so deeply ingrained that the person no longer has to think about it consciously. It simply radiates from their being, shaping how they show up in relationships, in work, and in life. There is also a spiritual element at play. Words are vibrations and repetition creates resonance. Each time you affirm your worth, your mind, body and energy begin to vibrate in alignment with that truth. And when you are aligned internally, the external world responds in kind. Doors open, connections appear, opportunities arise. This is not coincidence, it is coherence. You are no longer sending out a fragmented signal of doubt and fear. Instead, you are broadcasting clarity, and the universe meets you at that frequency. Yet repetition alone is not enough. The spirit in which you repeat affirmations matters. If you say the words while filled with anger or judgment at yourself for not getting it right, the affirmation loses its power. Louise Hay emphasized kindness in the process. She urged us to look into the mirror, to meet our own eyes, and to say the words with as much gentleness as we would offer a child learning to walk. Because that is what we are doing, teaching ourselves to walk again, this time with strength, love, and dignity. Over time, the practice of affirmations becomes less about repeating words and more about embodying them. You begin to live as though they are true, and that embodiment is what makes the difference. Saying "I am confident" hundreds of times is powerful, but taking a step forward with confidence, even in a small way, is the living proof of that affirmation. Words plant the seed, but action waters it. Together they produce the harvest of a transformed life. So I invite you to reflect on this. What are the words you are willing to repeat until they become your truth? What declaration will you allow to echo in your heart until it rewrites the story of your life? Because every moment offers you a choice to rehearse the old lines of fear or to practice the new script of power. Speak it, repeat it, live it. And soon what was once a hopeful affirmation will become the undeniable reality of who you are. When we take a step back and look at what we have explored, the message becomes beautifully simple yet profoundly powerful. Your words are the building blocks of your life. What you choose to affirm again and again becomes the lens through which you see the world and ultimately the reality you inhabit. Louise Hay taught us that transformation does not come from force, but from gentle, consistent choice. The choice to plant roses instead of weeds, the choice to speak love instead of fear, the choice to affirm life instead of limitation. You are not powerless, no matter where you stand today. In this very moment, you hold within you the ability to rewrite the story, to shift the inner dialogue, and to create a future that reflects your highest truth. Begin with a single affirmation, repeat it with sincerity, and let it guide you into new ways of thinking, new ways of feeling, new ways of being. And as you carry this practice forward, remember the words you speak to yourself are not idle, they are sacred. They are commands to your mind, instructions to your body, and invitations to the universe. So choose them wisely, choose them lovingly, choose them with the certainty that you are worthy of every good thing life has to offer. Because in the end, affirmations are not just about changing your thoughts, they are about awakening to your power, embracing your worth, and stepping into the life you were always meant to live. The question is not whether affirmations work. The question is, are you willing to work with them, to repeat them, to embody them until your life itself becomes the greatest affirmation of all?